6. Bell. The dining room was a shining, bright space, so unlike its character from the morning. I leaned against the door frame to the butler pantry and stared at the delicate crystal glasses, the faces, each with their own little glint dancing around their faces, at the silverware newly polished, the fine china, the candles lit in their silver holders, the lights in the chandelier above bright and welcoming, and I thought to myself, this room is not for me, for the people who live here. This was the room for the people who visit. How pathetic. You ready, son? My father had a way of bursting into the room like a famous bull in the china shop. The glasses at the table positively shook with fear. I sighed. Of course he was ready. When was I ever not ready? Yes, father, I replied. Good. How does it look? Does it look expensive? Father asked it, walking to the table and examining it closely. He found an invisible spot on the knife and spat it on, giving a rub then with the sleeve of his perfectly tailored suit jacket. Father, you can't do that, I said. I motioned to one of the servants who had just placed a giant floral arrangement on the sideboard. He nodded it immediately and swooped in, how very politely take a knife from my father's meaty grasp. It looks expensive, though, he said, turning to me. All day had been nothing but question after question. My father was trying to make sure everything was perfect for fear of what others might think. I really wish Mother were still alive for moments like these. She had a magical calming effect on him, on all of us. She put things into perspective. Either father or I was particularly good at putting things into perspective. Yes, it does, I replied. Fancy, right? He turned back to the table and put his hands on his hips. He seems pleased. Very fancy. He turned and grinned at me. You know, the way New York likes it. Just that way? It was never names with them. With any of them, it was always places. New York, Chicago, Philadelphia. These men identified so hard with their cities. It was as if they have built them from the ground up. Ironic, since most of them come to America not so long ago. All of us were newcomers in a way, and if we did think it, we have reminded of it, but others, the others who didn't call themselves by city names, but by their own last names that were meant to suggest a more deeply rooted fermentous than cities than themselves, old money. All of it was for a show. All of it was exhausting. I didn't want any part of it. Yet here I was, suddenly sitting at the table with a dozen or so men just like my father, loud, hungry, or something more than just a steak at the table, and rich, so very rich. I played this part, attended so many of these dinners. How I ended eating a bloody steak when I had only just been standing watching my father spit on the knife. Soon desserts will happen. Had happened it. The expensive whiskey or brandy for my father and his guests. Oh, that happened it, too. Then what? Then suddenly I'll be standing in some nightclub on the boardwalk or at the elegant bar in a hotel, surrounded by noise and uncontrollable laughter. The messy drunken behavior that wasn't quite dangerous enough to break out into fights, but not so safe as to offer a teasing joke without causing deep offense. Now it was a future positively. Now I was there at the Rose Club, that was the fancy juke father had. Really pulled out all the stops with this visit in my very suffer state. I realized only that this visit was a big deal for my father, as in a natural big deal. My father only brought guests to this club if he was engaged in a deal that could have a huge effect on his newcome and, more importantly, his power in Atlantic City. I haven't been paying any attention. Now I regretted I was at risk. I have no idea what was going on. This happened to me sometimes. Time slipped in and out. I remember trying to explain to my father as a child this feeling of losing moments. He couldn't grasp the concept and had no desire to try harder. Mother had just died and he hardly had room for his own thoughts. I didn't blame him. But if he understood, I felt back then maybe this could help him too. Help him skip the past scary things, the frustrated things. and just focused on what needed to be done. It was scary after Mom died. What do we do now without her? What do we live our lives without her support? Best to ignore those questions. My life returned to more regular pace, and I was brought back to reality as I handed a glass of champagne. "He's 17. A man with a thick New York accent laughed it, not really concerned for my moral character, just enjoying the moment. "Champagne doesn't count." Giggled at his date, a short, freckled, red-headed woman with a guppy smile. "It's Atlantic City. Nothing ever counts here," added another fellow. "Except Emmett's take," said the New York accent man. They all laughed heartily at my father's greed and clicked at the glasses. I didn't join them, just placed my full champagne glass on the passing writing tray, turned around and stared at the large dance floor. Swirls of color slipped across my view as folks danced and banged on the bandstand behind. It was amazing that despite the tourist season being long behind us, there were still enough people to fill this room, still enough folks who needed a drink and a laugh and a spin on the dance floor, who needed to escape. What were they running from tonight? What would weigh them down tomorrow morning? Did they see their futures all laid out before them by someone else? Did they just wish they could turn onto the dirt path and have an adventure or two? Were they trapped? Were they like me? And then all the lights were out.